Resolute, the crown prince left the East Palace and went straight to the main hall. The emperor, surprised at his sudden appearance, asked, "Why have you come here?" "I have something to discuss regarding the envoy preparing to depart for the Ming dynasty," Jinho replied. "There is a matter we must have the emperor of Ming confirm." The courtiers were astonished, exchanging glances. What is the crown prince planning this time? They wondered silently. The emperor leaned forward with curiosity. "And what is it? What is going through that mind of yours now?" The crown prince smiled faintly, his thoughts already calculated. "The first step in filling our treasury is securing a monopoly on gold-tipped pens. We must ensure Rhone's merchants gain exclusive rights to trade them within the Ming dynasty. The Emperor of Ming repeatedly requests more of these pens from us, proof of how highly they are valued. Considering the sheer size of Ming, their demand will far surpass our own." He continued smoothly. "Furthermore, every time the Ming envoy arrives, they demand an excessive amount of tribute. For this reason, we must request an imperial edict that limits the extent of their demands." At this, Su became visibly agitated and spoke up sharply. "Crown Prince, that is impossible. The Ming dynasty regards Rhone as a vassal state. How could a vassal dare to complain about the requests of its suzerain? Such defiance would be seen as the height of disrespect." Jinho countered firmly. "And how is that disrespectful? Does the size of their empire give them the right to trample upon smaller nations?" Su shook his head. "That is not the point. If we suddenly reduce the tribute compared to what has always been customary, the consequences will be severe." Frustration welled up in Jinho. "This old man opposes me at every turn." Aloud, he pressed his point. "Do you even know where this tribute comes from? It is born from the sweat and toil of our people. Moreover, the tribute demanded by the Ming dynasty continues to rise, leaving less and less food for our people. At this rate, even the taxes that sustain our national treasury will dwindle. Shouldn't we address this danger before it grows any worse?" Seum replied cautiously. "This is because the crown prince has yet to fully grasp the complexities of state affairs. The members of the envoy are all eunuchs, trusted servants of the emperor himself. If they were to speak ill of us to the emperor of Ming, we could face grave consequences." The crown prince countered firmly. "Do you truly believe the emperor of the Ming dynasty to be so foolish?" Seum stammered, "That is not what I mean. I only fear that your young age may lead us into major losses for the sake of minor gains." Anger sparked in the crown prince's eyes. "And what does my age have to do with this? Did you not just say we risk great loss for little gain? Each time the Ming envoy comes, the tribute they demand clogs our roads for miles. Is that not wealth stolen from our treasury and from the people themselves? Master Joseon, the ancient sage, once declared that a true official must always ensure the people can live in peace. Yet here you are, insisting we bow and serve these eunuchs. Tell me, Seum, what does that make you?" Seum tried to compose himself. "Your Highness, you are exaggerating. We are not bowing down." But the crown prince cut him off sharply. "I have not finished. Mencius once said that a righteous person, even when surrounded by luxury, shows compassion, and when seated in the highest position, still upholds integrity, always adhering to virtue and righteousness. Yet here you are, giving bribes and flattering these eunuchs. Do those actions align with any of these principles? If not, how dare you call yourselves righteous gentlemen?" With those words, the crown prince fell to his knees, his voice ringing with determination. "Father, please allow me to lead this envoy. I will petition the emperor of the Ming dynasty myself and do everything in my power to put an end to this corrupt practice. I beg you, grant me this chance." He pressed on, his voice unwavering despite his age. "Yes, I am young, only 9 years old, but my determination is higher than the tallest mountain." The emperor, weary, massaged his temples. "The road to Beijing is long and full of hardship. But the crown prince replied without hesitation. The present situation of Rasen is both a crisis and an opportunity. If we seize it, this could become the foundation for 1,000 years of prosperity. But if we fail, our nation will remain forever small and isolated. Father, I hope you can see my heart. The emperor sighed deeply. Return to your palace, crown prince. Eunuchs escort him back to his chambers. He seems overly excited. Calm him down. Please, father, let me go, I beg of you. The crown prince cried in desperation. Back in the East Palace, he stormed into the hall. Everyone out, he shouted, his voice breaking with frustration. Damn it, I was too emotional. Left alone, he sat in silence, his thoughts burning. That wretched Seum, he looks down on me because of my age, doesn't he? Always finding fault with me. I won't let it pass. Just wait, you'll see, you scoundrels. Then he called out sharply, Eunuch, prepare for the journey to the Ming dynasty. Startled, the eunuch stammered, What? Why so suddenly? I said prepare my things now. Meanwhile, in the main hall, the officials gathered. We cannot allow the crown prince to act as he wishes, they urged the emperor. Your Majesty, we beg you to understand our concerns. The emperor exhaled heavily. Do you know how much rest the boy gets each day? Never more than 6 hours. A child of 9, already burdened with dreams of making this nation prosperous, while all of you can only oppose him, over and over. The officials fell to their knees. Our sins deserve death, Your Majesty. Our sins deserve death. Suddenly, a servant rushed in, breathless. Your Majesty, an urgent matter. The emperor looked up sharply. What is it? The crown prince, he is preparing to depart. Everyone froze in shock. What? Where is he going? The emperor, alarm spreading across his face, demanded, Where is the boy planning to go? A eunuch reported, It appears His Highness intends to depart for the Ming dynasty immediately. He said he cannot afford to waste even a moment if he truly wishes to protect the country and its people. The emperor, furious, slammed his hand on the table and shouted, That insolent boy, in a fit of rage, he stormed towards the crown prince's quarters. Along the way, he spotted 2 eunuchs leaving the chamber and barked, You too, come here. They quickly approached, bowing low. Your Majesty, we greet you. The emperor narrowed his eyes. Aren't you from the East Palace? Where are you headed? One of them respectfully answered, We are on our way to the Office of Records, Your Majesty. For what reason? The emperor demanded. The eunuch hesitated, then stammered, Your Majesty, we were ordered to document all tribute items that have been given to the envoys of the Ming Empire since the reign of the late King Tasso. At those words, the emperor's fury deepened, his voice a growl. What? That insolent brat? The scene shifted to the empress's quarters. A servant rushed to her door, calling frantically, Your Majesty, Empress, there is a serious matter. The empress turned in surprise. What is this commotion? In a panicked tone, the servant said, The crown prince is packing his belongings. He intends to leave for the Ming Empire. The empress was startled. The crown prince, heading to the Ming Empire? Does he think this is as simple as taking a stroll through the village? Why is this happening? The servant replied quickly. He said he must stop the envoys from demanding excessive tribute. The Ministry of Justice officials argued he was overreacting, and in response, the crown prince declared he would go there himself, and the emperor is already on his way to the East Palace. The empress's face tightened with concern. Without hesitation, she rushed out of her chambers. As she hurried toward the East Palace, her thoughts raced, What are you doing, my son? The servants, confused but alarmed by her urgency, followed close behind, calling out, Your Majesty, Empress. At the East Palace, the emperor stood before the crown prince, his rage barely contained. He pointed a trembling finger and roared, You insolent child, what is this reckless behavior? The crown prince answered firmly, I am not being reckless. I am doing what I must as the crown prince." Outside the hall, the ministers lined up silently, none daring to step forward. The emperor's voice thundered again, echoing through the corridors. "You brat! Do you even know how old you are? How can you act like this?" The crown prince replied with steady resolve. "Age is not a barrier to doing what is right. It is only an excuse used by those who claim someone too young cannot act." The emperor's anger grew hotter. "Then why are you being so reckless?" At that moment, the empress arrived, breathless. "Your Majesty," she called. But the crown prince, standing tall, declared with determination, "If father is the parent of our people, then I wish to be their elder brother." Each time the envoys arrive, the people cry out in suffering. As their elder brother, how can I remain silent? The emperor gritted his teeth, his fury boiling over. "Insolent child! Steward, bring me the whip and the punishment bench." Gasps rippled through the hall. The empress, stricken with panic, rushed inside. Servants followed, shouting in alarm, "Your Majesty, Empress!" Throwing the doors open, the empress cried out, "Your Majesty, the crown prince is only 9 years old." The emperor's expression hardened. "Exactly. Because he is young, he must be disciplined and taught. Empress, this is not your place to interfere." Then, turning to the eunuchs, he commanded coldly, "Escort the empress out of this chamber." The empress, horrified, cried out in desperation, "Your Majesty!" Before the eunuchs could escort her away, she made one final plea. "Your Majesty, I beg you, show mercy." The whip struck hard against the crown prince's legs, each lash echoing through the chamber. With every strike, the emperor's voice thundered. "Your first mistake is arrogance, thinking too highly of yourself with such limited knowledge. Your second mistake is failing to respect those who serve you, and your lack of proper conduct." Though still young, the crown prince did not shed a tear. He clenched his jaw, gritting his teeth, enduring the searing pain in silence. His legs were soon covered in angry red welts, yet the emperor showed no hint of mercy. The whip lashed down again as he shouted, "Your third mistake is defying your father's orders. Remember this lesson well. You will not repeat it." Outside, the empress wept until no tears remained. The ministers, tense and uneasy, stood in silence, their eyes fixed on the chamber doors. At last, the doors opened. The emperor, breathing heavily after the punishment, stepped out. "Summon the royal physicians to treat the crown prince," he ordered. "Yes, your Majesty," the ministers responded in unison. As he passed, the emperor noticed the empress still weeping. His voice softened, though his authority remained firm. "Take care of the crown prince." Then, casting a sharp glance at the ministers, he added, "You are all pettier than a child." The ministers bowed, silent. One muttered under his breath, "How could the crown prince behave this way?" But another, catching sight of the empress nearby, quickly hushed him. "Be quiet. The empress may hear you." Indeed, she had. Her voice trembled with anger as she turned toward them. "Why could you not think as carefully as that child and allow matters to reach this point? I will never forget today." The ministers lowered their heads in shame. "We are at fault, your Majesty. We accept punishment." Later, in the crown prince's chambers, the empress scolded him, striking his legs in frustration. "You reckless boy! Must you always make me worry so? You cannot behave this way, do you understand?" The crown prince cried out, "Mother, it hurts." Lying face down, he thought bitterly to himself, "In both my past life and this one, it seems my legs are always fated to suffer." After a while, he noticed the blows had stopped. The empress, overcome with grief, wept quietly before embracing him tightly. "In this world, I have no one else but you, my son." Hearing her broken words, the crown prince whispered softly, "I'm sorry, mother." The scene shifted to the royal court. The emperor sat sternly upon his throne, looking down at the assembled officials. Turning to a eunuch, he commanded, "Bring the documents the crown prince prepared." "Yes, your majesty," the eunuch replied, quickly presenting a stack of papers. The emperor read through them, his face hardening. "The smallest tribute they demand equals 2 months of our treasury's income. The largest equals nearly 5. When we add the tributes forced from smaller villages, the total amounts to nearly an entire year's worth of resources." He held the records aloft for all to see. "Look at this. Here is the list of tributes sent to the main empire. Year after year, the burden only increases. What have you to say for yourselves?" The hall fell silent. The emperor's fury erupted. He slammed his hand against the armrest, his voice reverberating through the chamber. "Why do you not answer? Even the crown prince, a mere child, has considered this matter. Yet you, grown men entrusted with the state, remain silent." The ministers bowed deeply, their voices trembling as they responded in unison. "We beg your majesty's forgiveness." The emperor's command was sharp and unwavering. "Choose an envoy leader and assistant within 2 hours, and report back to me. If you fail, I will charge you all with treason." "Thank you for your majesty's mercy," the ministers replied hastily, bowing again. Later that night, as the emperor gazed quietly at the moon, the empress's voice broke the silence. "Your majesty." He turned his head, replying gently, "Is something troubling you, empress?" She lowered her eyes and answered, "I stepped outside for some fresh air. I could not sleep." After a pause, she hesitated, then asked, "Your majesty, why did you punish the crown prince so severely today? It felt far harsher than usual." The emperor remained silent for a long moment before speaking. "The crown prince is intelligent," he said at last. The empress lifted her gaze toward him. "Yet sometimes," the emperor continued, "he becomes too absorbed in his own cleverness. Today, when he was confronted by the ministers, he faltered. A tree that grows too straight is easily broken. Without the trust of his ministers, how can he ever hope to properly rule the people?" The empress stayed quiet, watching him intently. "I believe the crown prince was born with the nature of a sage," the emperor said softly. "And so, from this day forward, I will guide him myself, teaching him the path he must walk." The empress's lips curved into a faint smile. "I may not fully understand the depth of your reasoning, but if this is your aim, then I have no greater wish." After disciplining the crown prince so sternly, the emperor had immediately ordered the ministers to choose an envoy leader and assistant. Though the crown prince's words had not been wrong, his extreme manner had exceeded the emperor's patience, and for that he was punished. Meanwhile, the crown prince sat with his chin resting on his hand, sighing again and again as he watched his 2 younger brothers playing in the courtyard. His eyes lingered on the one closest to his own age, a boy who would one day hold great importance. That boy was Yu, his younger brother. Yet Yu was far from ordinary. For in the near future, this child would ignite bloodshed within these very palace walls. He would rise as the 17th king of Joseon, King Sejong. As far as memory served, he would murder the current ruler, King Munjong, and after Munjong's nephew, King Danjong, ascended the throne, he would lead the Jaeyujong rebellion, wiping out all who opposed him. His cruelty would not end there. He would even poison his own brother, Grand Prince Ampyong. To put this into perspective, the Jaeyujong rebellion was a massive coup in 1453, orchestrated by Sejong to purge the loyal allies of the throne. I recalled how my teacher once spoke of Prince sighing how he abandoned his brothers, betrayed his grandfather and father, and cast a dark shadow over what had been a prosperous age of the Joseon dynasty. Historians judged Grand Prince sighing harshly, and with good reason. That innocent-looking boy playing before me would one day become a tyrant. Jin Ho pondered deeply. What should I do? I must intervene before he reveals the monster he will become. A sudden smile crept across his lips as an idea took shape. Yes, that's the only way. With the right teaching, with all that I've learned, I'll make him serve me until his dying breath. His unsettling grin made Yu shiver without knowing why. Why did I just feel a chill? Jin-ho stepped forward, calling out warmly, "Yu!" The true names of the two young princes were Saing and Anpyeong. Both children bowed politely. "Good morning, elder brother." Jin-ho nodded with a smile. "I'm glad to see you both so cheerful today." Turning to Yu, he added, "Your writing class begins soon, doesn't it? Would you like to study with me today?" The odd request puzzled Yu. He hesitated, then asked, "Why?" Caught off guard, Jin-ho stammered, "Why do you ask that? I was simply curious about your progress in your studies." But within his heart, his true thoughts lingered. "Soon, you'll toil endlessly under my command. Laziness will no longer be an option." Yu frowned, unconvinced by his brother's words. At last, he turned away. "I'll study on my own." "Yu, wait!" Jin-ho called after him desperately. But Yu ignored him, taking his younger brother Anpyeong by the hand. "Come on, let's go. Don't linger here, you're disturbing our elder brother." Although Yu did not appear deeply upset, there was a faint trace of displeasure on his face as he walked away. Time slipped quietly into the afternoon, and soon Yu came running toward the dining hall, eager for dinner. Behind him, a maid followed closely, gently reminding, "Young master, it's almost time to eat. Running like that is dangerous." At the corner, Yu caught the faint sound of servants whispering. Their hushed conversation piqued his curiosity, prompting him to stop and listen. Carefully, he leaned around the corner to eavesdrop. "Isn't the crown prince remarkable?" one servant murmured. "So young, yet already brilliant in literature. Not only that, he understands the country's affairs at such an early age. How can someone be born a prodigy like that? It's unbelievable." Yu's ears sharpened, hoping the next words might be about him. Yet the more he hoped, the more his heart sank. While the crown prince was praised without end, when the conversation turned to Iju, it was only in comparison. "The eldest prince is talented too," another servant added softly. "But compared to the crown prince, it seems they were born to be measured against one another." The words made Yu tremble with anger. The maid behind him noticed his expression and rushed forward furiously. "How dare you speak like this?" she scolded. Startled, the two maids bowed deeply, trembling. "We deserve punishment. Your Highness, please forgive us." Just as the maid was about to drag them away for severe discipline, Yu intervened, pulling her back. "Let it go," he said firmly. "We'll leave it at that." Though still a child, Yu already understood disappointment. Outwardly, his expression remained calm, but inside he questioned himself, "Why am I always seen as lesser than my brother?" A few days later, Jun once again gathered his two younger brothers in his private chamber, determined to strengthen their bond. Proudly, he held up two handmade flash cards. "This," Jun explained enthusiastically, "is how this character is written. It reflects both the sky and the earth." The cards, decorated with a character on one side and a drawing on the other, were visually appealing. "Wow, brother, did you make these?" Eon exclaimed with delight. "Of course," Jun replied proudly. "I had the palace eunuchs help me put them together. They'll make studying more enjoyable." Inwardly, Jun thought, "I had these cards prepared in just a day to make learning easier. Now my brothers will enjoy practicing Chinese characters together." He smiled and called out, "Yu, come have a look as well." But Yu, uninterested, shook his head. "I already have a tutor. I don't need them." Puzzled, Jun asked, "Wouldn't it be more fun if we studied together?" Before he could finish, Yu's voice turned sharp. "I can handle things myself. Please don't call me for matters like this again." He turned away coldly, leaving Jun and Eon surprised and unsettled. The next day, Yu sat in the courtyard with his tutor, studying diligently. Hidden behind the bushes, Jun crouched low, quietly observing. "This child is more difficult to understand than I imagined. I need to watch him more closely," Jun thought. The tutor smiled and asked, "Don't you find this section difficult?" Yu answered politely, "Not at all. Your teaching method is very clear." His respectful demeanor left Joan stunned. What is this? He's so well-mannered with his tutor. Is he only difficult with me? All right then, the tutor continued. Let's review the 3 fundamental relationships and the virtues of steadfastness we studied yesterday. Yes, sir, Yu replied politely and began reciting with confidence. Loyalty of the subject to his ruler, the king, is the overseer of his people. Filial devotion of a child to his parents, the father, is the guardian and disciplinarian of the child. Here, overseer refers to one who guides and disciplines, much like a guardian or supervisor. Yu continued smoothly. Dedication of a wife to her husband, the husband, is the overseer of his wife. Jun was astonished. Not only has he mastered the 1,000-character script, he has also memorized the 3 fundamental relationships and the 5 virtues of steadfastness. He recalled something his own tutor once mentioned. There had been rumors about Grand Prince Suong. Though considered slightly less capable than King Munjong, Suong was gifted in both literature and martial arts. The only issue was that his older brother's brilliance overshadowed him. Perhaps, Jun thought, the same could be true here. Focusing on the child before him, Jun realized what Yu needs is. That afternoon, during Su Young's swordsmanship training, the boy was practicing intensely with a wooden dummy. Suddenly, a loud noise startled him, causing him to drop his heavy wooden sword. It rolled across the ground and stopped at Jun's feet. Jun bent down, picked up the sword, and asked, "It seems you've been practicing martial arts. How about teaching me a few techniques?" Gripping a wooden sword of his own, he added with a smile, "I don't know much about swordsmanship myself. Until now, I've only studied theory." Yu, though slightly annoyed, didn't refuse. While swinging his sword, he simply said, "It's not that hard. You just do it like this." Jai Hun, standing beside Yu, nodded thoughtfully and remarked, "It looks pretty difficult, doesn't it?" He raised his sword high and asked, "Do I do it like this?" But as the sword lifted above his head, Jai Hun lost control and fell backward, pulled down by its weight. "Ouch!" he cried out, startled. "Big brother," Yu called out, seeing him lying on the ground. Jai Hun groaned. "Oh man, just as I thought, it's not easy at all." Scrambling to sit up, he added, "I'd really appreciate it if you could teach your helpless big brother. I have no talent for this at all. Can you help me? I'm asking as a favor." Yu furrowed his brows, considering his brother's plea. He stayed silent for a moment, deep in thought. Then, suddenly, he burst into laughter and teased, "Why are you so bad at this?" And so, under the setting sun, Jai Hun and Yu grew a bit closer while practicing swordsmanship. Jai Hun constantly revealed his weaknesses and often praised his younger brother. "Is this how you do it?" Jai Hun asked. Yu shook his head. "No, raise your hand a bit higher." Children are naturally simple-hearted. Yu had always felt that no matter how hard he tried, everyone around him still said he wasn't as good as his older brother. This had led to feelings of dislike. But now, seeing that his older brother had weaknesses too, and was even worse than him in some areas, he felt a sense of balance return. With that, Yu became more willing to let Jai Hun approach and began treating him more warmly. The first step in changing the future tyrant had been completed. One beautiful morning, 2 noblewomen were sitting together, chatting. The lady in pink whispered, "Have you heard about the memory cards the Crown Prince made?" The lady in blue nodded. "Yes, I've heard of them. I was told they're quite useful." "Oh, really?" the lady in pink exclaimed. The lady in blue confirmed, "Yes, I've heard studying has become much more enjoyable with those cards." The lady in pink began thinking seriously. "Do you think these memory cards could help my son learn Chinese characters more easily?" The lady in blue smiled and replied, "Perhaps. The power of word-of-mouth marketing should not be underestimated." Later that same day, the lady in pink went to speak with her husband, a court official. "Husband, I've heard the memory cards made by the Crown Prince are very useful," she said. Surprised, the official asked, "How do you know about that?" Looking worried, she replied, "I found out by chance. But do you think we should borrow those cards? I'd like to use them to teach our son." The official stroked his beard and hesitated. "I'm not so sure." But his wife pressed on. "Why don't you ask the Crown Prince to borrow them?" The thought of an adult asking a child for something embarrassed him, and he wanted to refuse. "How would I save face?" he groaned. Immediately, his wife scolded him. "Is your pride more important than our son's education? This could affect the future of our family." As it turned out, this official wasn't the only one curious about Jin Ho's memory cards. Several other families were as well, so they banded together to request an audience with the young Crown Prince. When they expressed their desire, Jin Ho played hard to get, shaking his head. "Those cards were made for my younger brothers." The officials, desperate, pleaded, "Then please sell them to us. Price is no issue, just sell them to us." Jin Ho sighed and eventually relented. "If you want them that much, I suppose I have no other choice." He raised 3 small fingers in front of the officials and declared his price, 3 sol, equivalent to 159 kilograms of white rice. The officials gaped in shock. "What?" Jin Ho repeated firmly. "Did you not hear me clearly? That's 159 kilograms of white rice." One of the officials, sweating, stammered, "Does that mean these cards are worth 159 kilograms? Jin Ho smiled. "It's not that expensive, really," he explained. "One part of the cost covers the materials used to make the cards, another part will be stored in the national treasury, and the final part is for my personal use." The officials exchanged uncertain glances. Finally, one of them asked, "Your personal use? What exactly does that mean?" Speaking reasonably, Jin Ho replied, "It's to buy books. For various reasons, the price of books is quite high." The officials fell silent, looking at one another. At last, one official, unable to wait any longer, declared, "Fine, I'll buy them. My wife has been pestering me about this recently." Once someone took the lead, the others quickly followed, eagerly raising their hands. "I'll buy them too. I want the memory cards as well." Before long, many officials wanted to purchase the cards. Jin Ho smiled with satisfaction and said warmly, "All right then, it's a deal." He felt content, believing he could finally pursue his passions. While he had discovered a way to earn money, his mind remained focused on something far more important: his father's health. In the emperor's private quarters, a lavish meal had been prepared. The emperor glanced around anxiously, ensuring no intruders were present before lowering his gaze to the plate of roasted meat before him. Just as he reached for a piece with his chopsticks, a sharp voice rang out. "Father!" Startled, the emperor dropped the meat. The crown prince burst through the doors and exclaimed, "Are you eating nothing but meat again?" Annoyed, the emperor muttered, "What is this brat up to now?" The two began to argue fiercely inside the chamber, neither willing to yield. "You know, even a dog would be angry if its meal were interrupted," the emperor growled. "But eating properly is the only way to protect your health," Jin Ho shot back. Outside, the eunuchs exchanged uneasy glances. "Should we take him away?" one whispered. "Wait until His Majesty gives the order," another replied. At the table, the emperor's temper flared. Slamming his hand down, he barked. "What did you say? My meal is not healthy." He gestured at the dishes before him: roasted chicken, charred pork, and stir-fried beef with onions. Jin Ho boldly picked up the plates. "Is this what you call healthy? It's all meat, and you haven't touched a single vegetable." The emperor faltered, unable to argue. This brat," he muttered. Such quarrels had become a daily routine. The maids knelt on the floor, sighing in exasperation. "Crown Prince, please stop." His Majesty has endured enough because of you." It all began when Jin-ho developed an obsession with King Taejong's meals. He became fixated on his father's diet, sneaking into the study during working hours with a book in hand, lecturing, according to the dietary guidelines of the Yuan dynasty, a balanced diet rich in vegetables is essential for longevity. He even stormed into the kitchens to instruct the chefs. Too much salt, redo this dish, and cut down on the meat. Though reluctant, the staff could not refuse him. Even at mealtimes, Jin-ho hovered at his father's side, nagging endlessly. "Too much meat will thicken your blood, and when the blood thickens, it strains both mind and body. And when those are strained, what happens? Your head will suffer. And if your head suffers, father, what will happen to the nation? The country's stability will be at risk." Every meal became a lecture in the name of father's health. The servants often noticed the emperor's eye twitching with suppressed fury, bracing themselves for his inevitable outburst. Finally, the emperor exploded. "You brat, I've tolerated this because you're young, but I can't endure it anymore," he pointed furiously at Jin-ho. "Stop meddling with my meals. Even a ghost who died after eating would still have its dignity. Someone drag him out immediately." Furious, he added, "Do not allow him near me while I eat." Jin-ho was seized and pulled from the chamber, crying out, "Father!" He stood outside, dazed. "I can't let this continue. If things go on this way, the old man will ruin his health. He must stay strong to rule long into the future. Only then can I live comfortably." The servant who dragged him out bowed apologetically. "My apologies, Your Highness." Jin-ho's mind whirled. His diet is a serious problem. What can I do to keep him healthy? Inside, the emperor's booming voice echoed, "Bring me more meat." Then, a sudden thought struck Jin-ho. That's it. There's still one way. Without hesitation, he set his new plan in motion. He hurried to the palace woodworking shop, where craftsmen worked tirelessly day and night under his relentless instructions. "It needs to be rounder," Jin-ho insisted. "Yes, Your Highness," the craftsman replied, reworking the design again and again. The workers whispered among themselves, baffled. Why is His Highness having us build such a peculiar object? Day after day, Jin-ho returned to the workshop until, at last, after much labor, the finished creation was presented to him. "Your Highness, it is completed." But when Jin-ho took the item in his hands and applied just the slightest pressure, it snapped in half. Furious, he shouted, "Not like this. Make it stronger. Do it again and make sure it's sturdier this time." The workshop echoed with Jin-ho's relentless demands. "Do it again, and this time, make it rounder, rounder." A few days later, Jin-ho appeared before the emperor and the court officials, brimming with confidence and holding his latest creation. The emperor, upon seeing him, sighed. "What now?" Jin-ho approached with both hands, offering the new items, and said, "Father, I created these for your health. This is a durable jump rope and a jingle bell." The emperor, skeptical, frowned. "Are these really for my health? Aren't they just ordinary strings?" Smiling, Jin-ho explained, "No, father, this is no ordinary string. It is part of a brilliant plan to take care of your health." After working tirelessly day and night, he presented the emperor with the jump rope and the bell as tools for health management. "This will help you stay fit." "Father, it's called a jump rope." The emperor listened but remained unconvinced. How could jumping rope possibly improve my health? He thought. "Seeing is believing," Jin-ho declared. "Father, may I demonstrate?" The emperor nodded. "Go ahead. I permit it." Jin-ho placed the bell around his neck, gripped the jump rope firmly, and began to perform a simple routine, the kind familiar to any modern person. In front of the emperor and the entire court, he demonstrated each jump with enthusiasm. Finally, he stopped, panting slightly. "That is how you use the jump rope." But the emperor still looked puzzled. "How does this benefit my health?" Isn't it just regular jumping? Are you saying this alone will make me healthier? Prepared to defend his claims, Jin-ho held up an English book. Yes, father. According to Western scholars, people who sit too often tend to weaken their lower bodies. But here, it says that jumping rope strengthens the legs. Then, lowering his voice with a hint of mystery, he leaned in, glancing at the officials before adding, "There's another benefit." The court fell silent, curiosity piqued. Jin-ho, feigning the role of an innocent child, added, "It's said to be especially good for men, but I don't really know how to explain it." Bullseye. While many in the court paid little attention to general health, this hint sparked sudden interest. The emperor himself leaned forward. "Is that really true?" Jin-ho nodded eagerly. "Yes, father. I'm certain of it." The emperor studied the rope with uncertainty. "It looks strange, but it doesn't seem all that different from ordinary jumping. And the boy says it's good for that too. So I just spin the rope and jump over it." "Yes," Jin-ho replied, pointing to the bell around his neck. "Just follow the rhythm of the bell, father." He then called over a servant. "Steward." An elderly man stepped forward and bowed. "Yes, your highness." Jin-ho removed the bell and handed it to him. "Put this on the emperor. When father jumps rope, you must count 100 jumps according to the sound of the bell." The steward bowed again. "Understood." In a softer, more emotional tone, Jin-ho said, "My greatest wish is for you, father, to live a long and healthy life." The emperor could hardly refuse after hearing this. He moved to an open area in the courtyard, ready to try. "Father, allow me to tie the bell on you," Jin-ho said with delight. The emperor looked doubtful. "Do I really have to wear this?" "Yes, father," Jin-ho insisted as he carefully tied the bell around his neck. "You need it to keep the rhythm." The emperor frowned. "But wearing this makes me look rather like a pig, doesn't it?" Jin-ho hadn't considered that. Once it was pointed out, even he couldn't help laughing so hard that he spat out his drink. Annoyed, the emperor snapped, "What are you laughing at?" "Nothing at all, father," Jin-ho quickly denied. "All right then, let us begin." The emperor hesitated. "Do I really have to do this? It feels improper." "You'll get used to it soon, father," Jin-ho reassured him. Reluctantly, the emperor began. He swung the rope and attempted a few jumps, but due to his round figure and lack of exercise, he was already out of breath after only a handful. Panting, he stopped. "Steward, this is harder than I expected. How many times did I jump?" The steward answered honestly, 9 times, Your Majesty." The emperor was taken aback. Only 9. Turning to Jin-ho, he attempted to negotiate. "Since it's my first attempt, shouldn't we reduce the number of jumps?" The crown prince crossed his arms and firmly shook his head. "No, father. You must persist. You should strive for more." Jin-ho declared with determination, "I will remain here until you reach 100 jumps." This bold statement nearly moved the emperor to tears. Over time, news of the emperor's unwavering dedication to his jump rope practice spread throughout the palace. One day, a group of officials gathered, whispering among themselves. Suddenly, a man rushed forward. "Are you all still here?" 2 royal physicians standing nearby turned toward him. "What is the matter?" one asked. With a grave expression, the man replied, "His Majesty just coughed." One of the physicians, puzzled, remarked, "Doesn't His Majesty usually cough around this time?" "That is not the issue," the man continued gravely. "The important detail is that right after coughing, he hurried to use the plum blossom chamber pot." For context, the plum blossom chamber pot is a special vessel reserved exclusively for the emperor. This development shocked many because ever since King Taejong began his daily jump rope routine, dramatic changes had taken place. In the past, he relieved himself only once every 3 days. Now, however, he visited the chamber pot daily. Palace maids even congratulated him on his improved health. Not only that he was now able to stay up late to review court documents, and curiously, his visits to the Queen's quarters had also become more frequent. The Queen's quarters, of course, being the Empress's residence. Rumors soon spread among the officials. Have you heard? The Emperor has taken up jump rope. After he coughs, he always goes straight to the plum blossom chamber pot. His complexion looks better than ever. It must all be connected. One whispered, could it be because of the jump rope? Another nodded. It certainly seems that way. They sighed, then shared their own troubles. These days, my health has been poor. Mine as well. I can hardly sleep, and my wife complains every night. As they finished speaking, they exchanged meaningful glances. One afternoon, as the Crown Prince was quietly studying, a distressed voice suddenly called out. Jin Ho looked up, startled. Before him stood all the court officials, rushing forward in panic. What is the matter? Jin Ho asked. The officials answered bluntly. Can you make more jump ropes? Name your price and rice will pay. I need one for my wife and children. Another official cut in, and I require one for myself as well. The scene quickly descended into chaos, resembling a classroom full of unruly children. Jin Ho raised his voice. Please, one at a time. Speak in order. This unexpected success astonished him. Without delay, he returned to the woodworking shop and announced to the craftsmen. We now have a heavy workload. From this point forward, each of you will be assigned a specific task. One person will make the ropes, another the handles, and another the bells. The workers, eyes brimming with tears, reluctantly accepted their fate, fully aware that the Crown Prince was exploiting their labor. Then Jin Ho commanded, now produce 500 more. In despair, the workers muttered, please, just kill us already, we are human too. But Jin Ho was not finished. He pulled out another design and handed it to a servant. Deliver this to the royal tailor, he instructed. The servant asked, what is this, your highness? Jin Ho explained, it is uncomfortable to jump rope in skirts. To make movement easier, I have designed exercise pants. This combination of inventions sparked a health revolution among court families. Soon, entire households were jump roping together. With stronger husbands and more content wives, joy filled homes across the nation. People praised the innovation. Now that we have these, everything is so much easier. Such a simple idea, yet such a profound impact. The Crown Prince is truly a genius. Not only did families thrive, but Jin Ho profited greatly. After collecting rice from the officials, he stored it all in his private warehouse. Standing proudly before his massive stockpile, he crossed his arms and laughed. I'm earning wealth even faster than expected, but it is still not enough. I want more. Of course, alongside praise came criticism. Some traditional officials whispered among themselves, these inventions have made the Crown Prince renowned. I hear he even sells them to the highest ministers. Pointing fingers, they muttered disapprovingly. Hoarding wealth is not the way of a virtuous man. A senior official raised his hand, instantly silencing the chamber. Patience. Even the smallest spark can set a great fire. If he allows ambition to cloud his judgment, his own downfall will be inevitable. The others exchanged measured glances, a silent understanding passing between them. The Crown Majesty's assent was remarkable, but the question lingered, could it truly endure? As the days went by, preparations for the journey to Beijing were finally complete. Unlike past diplomatic missions, where merchant caravans accompanied the envoy, the Minister of Foreign Trade suggested a new approach. When King San heard the proposal, he turned to his advisors. Consider Honk's suggestion, he instructed firmly. Make sure our envoy conveys this idea to the Ming court. With the king's orders, the envoys set out on their mission, while life within the palace carried on. In the courtyard, Hyung stood alone, staring at the vast sky, lost in his thoughts. His quiet reflection was suddenly interrupted by a lively voice. "Hey, Hyung, look at this. Do you know what it is?" He turned and saw Princess Yong-su, the elder sister of King Mong, holding a tray filled with beautifully shaped, colorful sweets. Hyung studied them carefully before answering hesitantly, "Is it Yagwa?" Yong-su laughed, playfully tapping his back. "Wrong, it's Dosik," she said with amusement. "You've been studying for 100 days, and you still can't tell the difference." Dosik was a traditional Korean sweet often served with tea. With a teasing grin, she added, "You really should take a break from burying yourself in books all day. Keep this up, and you'll start looking just like father." At the mention of their father's round, plump figure, Hyung flinched, his face tightening in irritation. "I'm still better off than you," he muttered. Unbothered, Yong-su walked past him with a graceful smile. "I wouldn't be so sure," she teased. "Anyway, make sure you study hard today." As she passed by the palace eunuchs, she greeted them warmly. "Good morning, Grand Eunuch." The elder eunuch bowed deeply. "Did your highness rest well last night?" In the Joseon court, princesses held esteemed titles as the treasured daughters of kings. Hyung walked away, mumbling under his breath. "She's always like this, but I suppose it's normal at her age." Still, his thoughts lingered on his radiant sister, Princess Yong-su. Yet, even as she smiled in the distance, a chilling realization struck him. In just 2 years, the palace would be drowned in grief. Yong-su was destined to fall to smallpox. The disease had plagued humanity for centuries, bringing high fevers, agonizing rashes, and permanent scars to those who survived. In medieval times, its fatality rate reached nearly 30%. Among the 3 great terrors of the world, tigers, war, and smallpox, the last was the most merciless. When Princess Yong-su fell ill, King San was shattered. She was his firstborn daughter, the pride of his heart. But Hyung clenched his fists, his eyes burning with determination. "I won't let that happen," he vowed. He already had a plan. The scene shifted. Hyung now stood before a cow, speaking with an elderly servant. "This cow," Hyung said, his gaze sharp, "it has smallpox, doesn't it?" The cowherd, kneeling respectfully, replied, "Yes, your highness." A faint smile curved Hyung's lips. "Excellent. You may be the key." Nearby, his bodyguards exchanged uneasy glances. What was the crown prince plotting this time? They were on Neobyeon Island, modern-day Jeju. The land was poor for farming, so the locals relied mainly on raising livestock. Hyung turned to the farmers kneeling before him. "Do all of you raise cattle?" A man in a worn brown tunic answered, "Yes, your highness." Hyung continued, "Which of you has never suffered from smallpox? Raise your hand." One farmer lifted his hand. "That would be me, your highness." Hyung's eyes narrowed. "And even after years of raising cattle, you've never caught it?" The man shook his head. "No, your highness, I have never fallen ill." Hyung's curiosity grew sharper. "Then tell me, has Neobyeon Island ever faced a smallpox outbreak?" The farmer nodded. "Yes, your highness. Every year, before winter arrives." Hyung frowned deeply. "Then why is it that none of you here have ever fallen sick?" The farmers exchanged uneasy glances until one of them finally admitted, "To tell the truth, our doctor and landlord don't believe in it, but there is an old remedy we secretly use to halt the disease." Hyung's tense expression softened into a grin. "I knew it," he thought, recalling Edward Jenner, the man who pioneered the smallpox vaccine. Jenner had discovered that those who contracted cowpox from cattle never fell victim to smallpox. Through relentless experiments, he had transformed the future of medicine with vaccination. Eagerly, Hyung turned to the farmers. "Does anyone here know how to perform this method?" A man dressed in white hesitated, then stepped forward. "I do, your highness." Then use it on me, Hyung said firmly. The farmer's face went pale, as if he had misheard. What did you say, Your Highness? Hyung, unwavering, extended a needle toward him. I want you to perform the procedure on me. The farmer's eyes widened in disbelief. Why, Your Highness, you can't mean that. Meanwhile, back at the palace, the emperor sat on his throne as ministers debated urgent state matters. Our treasury is nearly empty, one minister warned gravely. The only way to stabilize the budget is by raising taxes. Before the discussion could continue, a royal steward burst into the chamber, his face drained of color. Your Majesty, an urgent matter requires your attention, he cried. The emperor, calm as ever, raised an eyebrow. What has happened? The steward hesitated, then leaned in to whisper in his ear. The emperor's expression shifted instantly from composure to disbelief. What? Where is the crown prince now? He demanded, rising to his feet. The ministers, startled by their ruler's sudden outburst, whispered among themselves. What's wrong? What happened? The steward quickly explained. His Highness has just returned to the palace. Without hesitation, the emperor swept out of the chamber, his robes trailing behind him as he stormed through the corridors. Hyung, he called desperately. Startled servants and officials rushed after him, stunned to see their normally composed ruler nearly frantic. When the emperor finally spotted his son, he shouted again, Hyung. Hyung turned, confused by the commotion, just as his father reached him, breathless and wide-eyed. Are you hurt? The emperor demanded, scanning him frantically for injuries. No, father. What's going on? Hyung replied, bewildered. The emperor's expression darkened. He turned sharply to the steward. Explain, now. The steward stammered nervously under his piercing gaze. Your Majesty, I only repeated what Yiko told me. The emperor's voice hardened. Yiko, step forward and speak for yourself. A eunuch fell to his knees, bowing until his forehead touched the floor. Your Majesty, I deserve punishment, but I swear I spoke the truth. The emperor's patience snapped. Are you trying to make a mockery of me? Father, please don't blame him, Hyung interjected quickly. This is all a misunderstanding. It has to do with Neo-Bayon Island. The emperor turned back to his son, his expression demanding an explanation. What do you mean? Hyung exhaled heavily, knowing this would not be easy to explain. It's about a sickness that sometimes spreads among the people of Rome. The emperor's eyes narrowed. You mean smallpox? Hyung's face brightened. Exactly. I've been studying medical texts from China, and I discovered a method to prevent it. I tested it on myself using material from a cowpox infection for inoculation. Silence swept through the hall. The emperor's mind reeled, struggling to comprehend his son's reckless decision. His breath caught, his vision blurred, and before anyone could react, he collapsed. Gasps of horror echoed through the palace. Father, Hyung cried, rushing to his side. The ministers shouted in panic. Your Majesty, wake up! But the emperor lay motionless, stunned into unconsciousness by the shocking revelation.